Welcome to the Hay Kings podcast, brought to you by Krone, dedicated to hay and forage growers. Today we're welcoming back Jesse Bounds. We're going to talk about a whole range of things from HayCon to hay exports and maybe even some hay policy. So this should be a good variety of topics. Welcome back.
Thanks, John. Glad to be back.
Let's hear about HayCon, because this is new. It
is new. So first off, it's going to be in Las Vegas. It's going to be December 11th and 12th. It's the second week during NFR. If you have never been to Vegas during NFR, National Finals Rodeo, it's one of my most favorite times of the year to visit Vegas because you got a whole bunch of cowboys there. It's great. And like Jeff Jackson said, don't let me forget to talk about how great the Cowboy Christmas is for everybody's wives that come and visit. So they can go check out Cowboy Christmas while you're at HayCon.
Actually, the only time I've been to Vegas was for a forage industry event. It was the Western Alfalfa Seed Growers. It takes a little bit to find your spot, because anything in the world that you want to find, you can find it in Vegas. And I found my gelato and birria tacos. So, it takes a little time to find it, but it's not such a bad place.
No, and you know, the thing is, a lot of people that have never been to Vegas, there's a fair amount of people in the 10-4 coaching group that are like, wait, I've never been. They're a little, it's kind of a big trip maybe for them. And I'm like, hey, here's the deal. It's easy to get in. It's easy to get out. You just, a lot of times, you can Uber anywhere. I recommend from the airport, taxis are so normal around there. You just grab a taxi, make it easy. They know where everything's at, drop you off at your hotel. We're right down on the strip, so you can book. First off, there's a website. It's haycon.org. You can buy your tickets on there. There's vendor spots available. We still have probably about 5 vendor spots at the time of this, as we're shooting this. But basically what it is there's not going to be equipment there. There will be equipment manufacturers and dealers there that have spots. We've got from tarping companies to insurance companies to seed. We're going to do seed companies. There's going to be an irrigation discussion, an irrigation panel that I didn't plan on doing, but I got a really good speaker to do that. We're going to talk about finance, sales, marketing, leadership, personal development. So, one of the things that we do with 10-4 coaching is we don't just talk about, how to overcome challenges in, say, the business, or how to, use social media to leverage in marketing and other types of marketing. We always, we're pushing each other in there to talk about personal development and fitness, which is one thing that we lack a lot in ag. It's probably, I think, John, one of the biggest areas problem. It's huge, and it's we don't have time. How do we overcome it? And so it's just one of the things that we do. And so I've got a really good speaker that has spoke at most all of my events. He'll be there. Sean Crane, he'll be speaking on that side of it. So it's going to be different than your normal type of convention that you've went to. You'll leave different, that's for sure. No matter who you are, where you're at in your business, from a small business to a very large corporation, there's something there for everyone to take away.
Now, I want to address the need in the hay industry. It's not a particularly great time in agriculture in general, and whether you're on the West Coast looking at very low hay prices because the export market isn't great, and we'll get to that in a minute, or you're on the East Coast and it was wet, and now it's dry. It's a rough go out there.
Yeah, it sucks. There's no way to put it, right? Prices have been bad. In our area where we're at, we've had water problems, since 2018, 19 is when it really hit us. Mm-hmm. We were down, it takes a foot of water to grow every cutting of alfalfa in that area. And we were down to 0.45, right? Not even enough to get one cutting. And so we've been, struggling through that. And then you combine that with low prices.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It doesn't work. And just like you're dry land, right, where you're at, and you had a huge drought.
Huge drought. Well, we actually haven't been out of drought since August of 22.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's been 3 years straight through.
And And I think that the biggest thing is that like everybody has their own problems in their own region, right? And what you try to do, and I think this is the takeaway, is how do you make and what do you do to make the best case scenario of what you have going on, right? So if you're,
Or how do you pivot? And how do you get new ideas if you don't connect, right?
I sold my 3-tie balers probably 5 years ago, and I said I'd never 3-tie again. And
I saw some late cutting
there was
orchard grass.
I was in Las Vegas last weekend, and I hired one of my neighbors to come and 3-tie orchard grass. And why? Because I use social media. I posted, you saw what I did. I posted when I planted the field. I posted when I grew, when we harvested big bales, and everybody's messaging me and commenting saying, "Hey, that looks like a really nice field. You should do 3-ties." So I'm like, okay, great. What's it worth, right? And it sounds like it's worth $13 to $15 a bale. Well, easy math at 85 to 90 pound bales at 14. Let's say call it an average of $14 a bale. That's $300 a ton. Big bale orchard grass hay in that area is worth 150 if you can get rid of it. That conversation wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have posted on social media. If I was in my own box doing my own thing, because I'm I think export because that's what I do. And I think I've got a big baler and I own all this equipment. I got to use it. And it's like, it was great. The time that of course, when we went to cut, the weather looked great. We cut, the weather changed when I was out of town. So it actually worked out. It was the best thing I ever did, right? It's all in the barn and I didn't do any of it. The hay got saved. They did a great job. And I'm going to make more money than if I would have baled it.
Absolutely. And you kind of have to set those payments on the big balers aside and just say, I have to pay that no matter what. Yeah. Let's ask the question how I actually make more money.
And that was how I made more money. And so then, of course, like anybody, I'm sitting there running the numbers going, okay, so should I buy a 3-tie baler now? Should I do all of it that way? And I'm running the numbers going, it's still cheaper for me to go hire someone as long as they can get there and get it done on time, right?
Yeah,
that's the key.
You have to give up some control to get a lower price, right? To pay to let somebody else eat the depreciation, right?
And so the biggest takeaway of this is like, I had to pivot really fast because I need to generate as much money as I can. That farm has been losing money. You cannot make money with 0.45 acre feet of water growing nothing. Okay. So, I've talked to several growers that are big, that only do big bales in certain regions. And I'm like, hey, have you thought about doing some small bales going into this I think that if you can grow some nice hay, you can, we don't want everybody that listens to this to jump into a 3-tie domestic and flood the market, which
we can do that.
We could do that, right? But, so those buyers, right, who I sold to, people like that will be at this event, right? So the big takeaway is the networking that comes with events like this. And we will have, the events that we've done in the past, we're drawing people from New York, Australia. We actually have one of our friends is coming from Australia.
Wonderful.
So, we're pulling people from, a large area. And these are going to be people that you're not going to meet at the farm show. These are people that have never been to, even though we know the show's great in Washington, right? These are people that
we're going to have to see what yours looks like. I'm a little biased. I think Northwest Hay Expo is the best hay show in the world.
No, it is a great show. The difference is we'll have people that will attend this that probably don't attend that, right? Because those shows are more of a regional show, and that's where talking to the vendors, because a lot this show won't work, or it's really a conference. This conference won't work without the vendors and the attendees, right? And one of the big things that we're doing differently here is that because we won't have balers and tractors and things like that there to keep the costs down, it allows the vendors to travel and actually be there. Because a lot of them don't have it in their budget, right? They're in the same boat that we are.
Equipment manufacturers,
they're not selling equipment, right?
Everybody in ag is slowing down. It's not just the farmers.
And a lot of the vendors that I've reached out to, they're like, we've actually cut the last year farm shows out, and we're going to cut more because we're just not seeing an ROI on our marketing spend, right? And so what they're saying is we would rather go and see that individual customer one-on-one, just travel, right? Just get in a truck, drive for a week and actually go see our main customers. We'd rather spend our money doing that than going to a show and hoping they show up and we can have that interaction. So like, okay, well, let's try this a little bit different. We'll keep the cost down for you. You don't have to bring a bunch of equipment. You just fly out there. You can have your booth. You're going to get a bigger pool of people to pull from, and that's the style of it that we're going for. So the vendors, I went to Vegas this weekend. I checked out the room. The vendors will be right there with us. So unlike a traditional show where you've got your speaking and you've got breakout rooms and then your vendors are separated, we're not doing that. We are keeping everybody tight in the conference room. So when they're speakers and we're talking about irrigation or fertilizer or crops or baling or the domestic market or the export market, whatever it is we're talking about, everybody's in the same room together.
No other square baler has a bigger appetite for the most demanding conditions than Krone HDP2 Big Pack. 8 knotters put more hay on every bale, and a new V-knotter design makes hanging on the bell hook almost impossible, requires fewer adjustments, and leaves no scraps behind. See it all at krone-na.com. Krone machines built for generations.
Do you have a session on farm finance?
Oh yeah, we'll be hitting finance. Yeah, it'll probably be a 2-part actually. So Jeff, who's a CFO, will do a presentation about finance structure, and then we will pivot, into a more in-depth what I did when we did Baylor School. I showed like my cost to bale, so I'll have new projections with that. So I'll show you guys my actual cost to bale breakdown, what mine was from 23, 24, and 25. So you can see how, what my direct costs are and how those have varied. So I always share that. So
I love that openness in finance, because so many folks just don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue. No. And how does depreciation interest, factor into that, and most people don't even realize that, your payments and interest aren't in your profit and loss statement. So depending on how your bookkeeper's doing it, you might be looking at a profit and loss statement that looks really great, but you don't realize that depreciation interest isn't in there because your loan payments don't flow through your P&L, and then you don't understand why your cash broke because you don't know what your debt service is. So all of that stuff, guys, we're going to go over, and hopefully you come out of it with a better understanding.
I hope we just lost everybody. And
I hope so too. That means they need to show up and learn.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I suspect that no matter how good you are at farm finance, there's always room for improvement, because not only do most folks not know the things that like accountants and bookkeepers fight over, the minutia of it, right? They just don't know it all. They have no concept.
They don't. And that's a big part of like one section that we always go over is like roles and responsibilities. Like I'm doing a finance event in November in Oregon. So anybody that's listening, 104coaching.com. I do a finance event twice a year. Usually it's like 20, 30 people. And we go over what me and Jon are talking about. We spend 2 days just breaking down, going through finance. But one of the big things that people get caught up on is that exact conversation is, they rely on their accountant, right? And especially right now, we're October, right? Year end's going to be here in under 2 months, right? We've got October, November, and let's see, December, right? So we're 3 months out, but you've got a lot of work to do because most of us are still farming.
Actually, we're recording here on the 3rd of October. In my day job, working as a farm and ranch management specialist, my phone started going off the hook 2 days ago. The 1st of October is the day.
Yep.
And it's going to get intense because I know I think people know that they lost money, but they don't actually know. They couldn't prove it to themselves.
Right. And that's exactly where so you said it's October 3rd. We're closing. We try to have our goal is to have our books closed out by the 15th. And what that means, guys, is basically what you do once a year where you take all your stuff to your accountant and you take your shoebox of receipts and they thumb through it. And then they say, okay, you made money, you lost money. We're doing that every month. Okay. So that we're doing it 12 times a year where you're doing it 1 time a year. And so our goal is always the 15th. And so right now we're actually pushing to get it done the middle of next week. So we want to be done early, exactly to Jon's point, because we need to see, okay, where did we end up with harvest? And then we run that projection of how much product we have through the whole entire next year. So next week, I'm already going to have 26 forecasted.
For somebody that buys and sells products, that's really easy. I found that my projections were completely worthless. We missed our worst case projections by 30%.
Absolutely. And we were, and mine are in my 20, and you're exactly right, John, that my 25s, we were down 30% in our straw market, right?
Yep.
In our straw harvest, we were off 30%. Now here's what's crazy, and I'm going to throw another little pitch in here, okay?
Oh, wait a second. Let's put a bow tie on HayCon. Give me the website for HayCon, and then we can go on.
Yep. The website is haycon.org. Super easy to find. You should be able, if you can't find it, you should be able to find it off of the 10-4 coaching website as well. But if you Google HayCon, it's got pretty good SEO because I've been posting like 14 times a day, hashtagging. So if you Google it, it'll probably show up. So if you don't put in, if it won't show up, put in HayCon Las Vegas, it should populate.
Can confirm if you just Google HayCon, it comes up as the first.
There.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to go over that, guys. We're going to go over we're going to go over marketing, websites, CRMs, running Facebook ads, and how you can use those. Like we run ads for selling hay. We run ads for, a lot of people in the coaching group. We run ads for trucking companies. That's how I get drivers now. We run Facebook ads and run those in through a funnel. So we're going to actually break down how we do that and what it costs us to acquire these leads and what our conversion rates are. So, it's going to be pretty cool.
And don't forget the importance of connecting with people, even if you're struggling.
Oh, the networking, John, is the most important part.
That's the most valuable part of all of these events is meeting the people, connecting with the people, getting that one-on-one time. Absolutely.
And it's all, guys, it is people. This is, because it's not a free event, right? It's $297 for a general admission ticket. The reason why you have to do that is we want people that are serious in the hay business, right? These are growers, these are buyers, these are truckers. Like we've got like logistics companies that, dry van, right? Do intermodal, things like that are moving. So if you're a grower in Arizona and you want to sell hay to the East Coast, you're going to be able to find a buyer and you're going to be able to find the person to get it hauled.
That's pretty cool.
So you can connect all the dots. And that's what I did last week when I decided to hire 3-tie out to be that, right? So, but I didn't, I had the network, I had the people, and it's going to events. And then because I've held my own events, then those people come, I talk to them. There's people several of the people I do business with now, they came in the ecosystem, come into a mastermind or a finance event, and they're sitting in the room, and I'm like, well, what do you do? And they're like, well, I sell hay on the East Coast. I'm like, well, shit, I didn't know that. I mean, they're in the group, but I don't know what they do, right? And I'm like, oh, great. Will you buy some hay from me? Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
It's like, but if I wouldn't have even put on that event and then asked them what they did, I would have no clue what they do, right?
Sure.
So it's going to be definitely, like I say, different than what you've been to. It's not basically a trade show full of candy bowls. There might even be, Sean might even make a rule that there is no candy allowed. You never know.
And let's talk about some markets here. What's going on in the export world?
Okay, so I'm going to talk primarily about what I do, because that's what I know, which is
Wait a second.
Korea.
For everybody not familiar, the U.S. exports about 4% of its total hay production. I mean, it's pretty modest. But on the West Coast, it's more like, some historical numbers, not right now, but it would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 20% of the grass hay and 18% of the alfalfa hay was exported. So on the West Coast, the 13 western states west of the Rockies, basically, it's a thing. And it has been the marginal demand that sets the price in the market for some time. But along came 2022. Fertilizer prices were super high. When I bought fertilizer and put it on my hay fields, it was 110 yen to buy the dollar. When the exporter wrote the contract for that hay that I was growing, it was 130 yen, and today it's 147 yen. It's been as high as 160. That means that our export customers, and this is more or less true for the South Korean won, the Chinese yuan, it's all the same story here. Our customers have about 30% less purchasing power. And this has been going since 2022. And I just want to point out that contemporary tariffs have so little to do with the struggle in the export market. It's really the strength of the dollar.
Yeah, and I just pulled up the import stats for Korea. So 22 was 1.471. Okay, so just under 1.5 million metric tons were imported in 22, and then in 23 that dropped to 1.22 basically. So you lost 200,000, metric tons just in total volume. Now, I'll kind of just, since we're already on that, 24, it went up to like 1.3, and then we're trending right now about 120,000 a month average, but August was the lowest. It was 103. So that can vary because of product. There's a little bit more to it than that, which we'll get into at HayCon, of like why it changes with, there's not tariffs going into Korea, but there is quota, which can manipulate the timing of when product basically arrives or is cleared customs. So that's where some of this can get, this data can get skewed.
You mean there's other forms of market manipulation going on?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're going to do a whole, so Sean Harris, who used to work at ACX Aldara, he's going to do a presentation on strategic forecasting and planning as a whole of how all of this that we're talking about plays into these markets. So Sean understands what's going on in these other countries. Basically, guys, what happens is as our price got really high, like John talked about in 22, it opened the doors for other markets. So, we've always had Australia products come into these countries, but we've opened up more products like coming from Spain. Okay, so we're fighting a war just like the commodities market. There's these other countries that are growing other types of commodities, right? Argentina and these other, other places. We have the same problem in the hay and forage industry where we were, $50 to $80 a ton underbid by countries like Spain.
Spain subsidizes hay dryers and the propane to put in them. Italy subsidizes hay harvest. Yep, go ahead.
So, yeah, no, that's a real deal. Like that is what we've been faced with was, there's and they are, the first product that's shown to be coming in was really started registering about 2020, and they've been, the first looks like in 20 they brought in around 20,000 tons into Korea, and then that is now gained. I mean, it went to 75,000 in 22, and then it kind of dropped off a little, went to 40, and they're hovering around that kind of 40,000. They're bringing in about 10,000 tons. So right now they're bringing in about 8 to 9,000 tons a month. So if you run that out over, they're consistently coming in at 8,000. We've basically lost 100,000 tons of market share, which is, it's 10% of the market.
I mean, a 10% loss. Imagine just having 10% less money, or imagine that, like.
I mean, and that's not, and the other issue that, and like I said, we don't have time to get into it, like, you have the massive decrease of export volume of alfalfa into China, right? You've got, there's a lot more guys going on this. I want to just kind of touch on, because I primarily sell into South Korea, and I have the data on South Korea, and I understand like how that, basically how it's a fight. I mean, it's a war at this point. It's a price war. And
the strong dollar puts you in a disadvantage from the get-go.
It puts us at such a disadvantage. So that's that, a lot of people ask, well, when's it going to come back? And when's it going to be like it was? There are so many factors that go into this that you really need to understand the big picture, which is what, we're going to do at the event, is like really give you guys like, this is what the export thing is doing as a whole, right? The whole market of the countries, and where we're seeing, where our advantage is, where our disadvantage is. And then we will talk about the domestic market of, kind of like what I did. I just, selling hay to East Coast, pivoting, and what I can do to, try to create more revenue for my farm. So, but I will say the good thing is, even though we're down a little bit, like with Korea, they are taking product. Okay, we're moving product. Yes, we're not where we were, but it is moving. It's been steady. Right now, our market, specifically what I do is ship grass straw. October is always our busiest month. October, November, December, historically, that's where we ship the most amount of product. And then typically it can crash in January or February, and that's depending on the other countries. So what is that Spanish product going to look like? How much is that going to cost? How much do they want to buy? We have Pakistan rice straw coming in now, which we didn't have before. And, of course, the Australia product's going to be in harvest. They're going to be harvesting, and that's going to hit the streets over there for sale as well. So we've basically got 3 products, and I forgot their domestic rice straw that they will harvest in Korea that will be coming offline. So we basically have 4 products coming into our grass straw market that'll all be coming in around, say November, December, January. It'll start kind of trickling in. And customers, if they hear that if there's a big crop, then they're going to slow down buying from us. And if they can get it cheaper from somewhere else, or John, if they get a large crop that gets rained on, then it becomes cheap product, which also hurts us. So it's truly supply and demand and pricing, and it's a world market. And I want you to remind everybody, so what is the percentage that export is? Because a lot of people rely on the export market. They think that's what's driving this thing. It's really not. I mean, it has a big play in the forage market on the West Coast.
What I would say is that the export market has historically been the marginal demand, that last unit of demand that actually sets the market price, because we have that base load that's relatively stable in beef cows, in dairy, and this is the hay market as a whole, right? Beef cows and dairy, other livestock, feedlot use, those types of usages. That demand is weaker too right now, as we think about having the fewest beef cows in the U.S. since the 50s. That weak demand shrinks the market, reduces the price, and then the export was always, in my mind, that was the variable demand that actually moved the market price. And with that demand being so weak, prices are lower.
The all-new Krone Gen 5 Big Pack Large Square Baler gives you outstanding reliability and serviceability. The completely updated VFS makes serviceability easier, faster, and more economical. Talk with your local dealer to learn more about Krone machines built for generations.
Yeah, and like we're trying to sell, like for us, even damaged product. So kick out bales, bad bales. We're seeing there's no dairies and feedlots in my area hardly at all. And if there are, you reach out to them and they're not interested in buying. They don't need feed. They're stocked up, or they're doing a lot of silage, or they're buying, month to month. They're just taking. They know that there's forage out there. They know that there's feed. They're not worried about it. They're not concerned.
Why would they tie up a bunch of capital in hay inventory when
Exactly.
the hay inventory is there? There's no reason to do that, and it's a self-reinforcing problem.
Yep. So they're just, especially your off-grade, quality products. I will say that it's kind of interesting because, and I don't buy and sell Timothy in Washington, but obviously I talk to a lot of people and kind of understand what's going on up there. But basically, like the customers in the export side, the customers are really price conscious. So that really nice, fancy, expensive Timothy is going to be a slow mover. It's not that there's not a market for it export, but there's fewer and fewer customers. The same goes with alfalfa hay. Korea and Japan have basically taken high proteined alfalfa hay out of the ration simply because of price. They can get cheaper protein over there. So they're looking for just clean, green, good price. Price is number one and quality second.
High quality fiber is actually what they're looking for, because you can always buy protein and energy in other
100%.
feedstuffs, whether it's soybean meal or corn or whatever.
And so if you're a grower and you're listening to this and you've got some really kick-ass, alfalfa, Timothy, and you're just, you don't understand why it's not going export like it used to, the customers have just changed, and you're going to be better off to go domestic with that product. You're going to be better with that alfalfa to try to find a dairy, whether it's in your home, in your area, because obviously transportation's a killer. So something closer to you. You guys all know that. And then when it comes to like Timothy or orchard grass or something like that, as well as most anybody knows going to listen to this 2-tie, 3-tie, I mean, that's where you're going to maximize your profits, and trying to get that.
Maximize your revenue.
Yeah.
Repairs and little balers, you'll eat your lunch.
Just, hey, there's a lot of technology coming out here. I mean, we see this Kubota baler now. What's the story with that?
Oh, so that's been in the works for some time. All of these double balers.
These double balers they've been working on them, huh?
Yeah. I mean, everybody has one now, and if you don't,
I don't know if any of my old hay fields were ever smooth enough to run those.
That is one of the things about a double baler, is it's more like the speed of a big baler. Not quite, but they're getting there. So your grounds, you either have to have bigger windrows or a faster ground speed.
You just put a rake on the front of that baler and just hog it in there.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, so overall, okay. So with all this being said, I would say the export market is I feel like it's kind of hit its low. I think that if anything,
I mean, we're kind of operating at about half of our theoretical capacity, right?
yes, yep, I feel like it's not going to go crazy. It's not going to get like awesome or anything like that anytime soon. People are running. If I was to call 20 hay presses today, they're going to tell me they're busy. They don't know for how long, but they're busy. They're not going to say they're kicking ass, but they're busy. We also have had some presses close down, take some machines out, maybe have one break down, not rebuild it, have a fire, maybe not rebuild. So there has been a little bit of consolidation in the market, which is going to help as long as we don't, get a bunch of new guys that jump in.
That's how I always talk about the export market, is not talking about the exporting companies, but thinking about that press capacity. Because
the capacity, yes.
that's actually what matters. And we're seeing those presses come out of the marketplace.
Yeah.
Especially when they're now to actually come out of the marketplace, though, they have to be broken or burnt,
yes.
or the other problem is if they sell to another country, we're exporting our manufacturing capacity, just like we've done with every other industry. It's actually better if the presses don't leave.
Yeah, no, 100%. There was a machine that I'd kind of looked at and I checked on it today just to see whatever had happened to it. And they said that it had basically been disassembled and never could find a buyer for it. And it was a great machine, but even for me, it just didn't make sense. It's like, I'm not going to go invest, even if I get a good deal on it, the power, the infrastructure, the concrete, like everything that goes with it, there's just not enough market for it. I mean, I don't need it.
If you cut corners, you need $750,000 to go around even a free press, right?
Yeah, 100%. Are we going to talk about this hot topic?
Oh, let's do it. Okay, you asked a question this morning on social media. What was it?
Does anybody wish we had forage subsidies like other crops? That was the question in my hay group.
And I think the overwhelming response was hell no.
Hell no. I'm looking at the comments right now.
And
no.
No. One after the next.
33 comments of no's.
So I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here, because no is not the most robust policy discussion that I've ever heard. As we think about the offerings available to hay producers today, there is crop insurance. There actually is a yield policy for hay that's available in some regions. There's pasture, rangeland, and forage, which is a rainfall index. I participate in that. Not my favorite, because it can actually be risk inducing, not risk reducing.
Explain to people how that works. Just maybe like 3 minutes or something, how that works.
Yeah. So the whole world's broken up into 14 mile by 14 mile grids. They take the 3 closest weather stations to that grid, and they do a geographic mean, a weighted average. So the closest weather station to that grid is the most significant as they record the historical rainfall. So every grid is a little different. You're able to ensure rainfall for a 2 month intervals. So you have to buy at least 4 months worth of coverage in non-overlapping intervals. So we can think about May, June, July, August, or we can think about January, February, or November, December, right?
Whatever you feel like is most important to your growing season.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, there's a lot of different philosophies around this, which is one of the reasons that I don't like it, because you can look at the historical data and it has nothing to do with your own farm production. And it actually ends up turning into gambling on whether it rains or not, but because it's subsidized over the long run, you should expect to harvest the subsidy. They made it actuarially sound to start with and then subsidized the program. For us, it's been working fantastic because, of course, we've not been out of drought in 3 years. So there already are. Was that good enough? That's a federal crop insurance program that you can get through any crop insurance provider. There already are subsidies in the hay and forage industry, and I actually argue against a couple of the FSA programs, because this year we just triggered 3 months of D3 drought, which makes cattle producers eligible for forage transportation subsidies. So I'm a hay grower. I don't have any cows. I did my 25 years in purgatory on a dairy. I don't have to have cows. You can't make me milk cows again. No, that's not true. I still love the sound of a pulsator. But the whole point of this is they're subsidizing, cattle producers are taking subsidies to truck hay past my drought-stricken farm, which puts me at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. So there's already subsidies and market distortions. By simply saying no when it comes to a discussion on farm policy, you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and you're worse off because you're letting the cattle producers, I'm not throwing too many rocks at cattle producers, but somebody in the cattle industry came up with that disaster assistance plan and didn't ask the hay growers. And if they would have, we might have got a better answer. That's the trouble, is other groups are putting their fingers on the scale and hay producers aren't even at the table. We can think about our national efforts. I heard from one of our folks involved with NAFA that alfalfa was the 4th largest crop in the U.S., just missed being the 3rd largest, so we didn't get anything. To which I pause and say, well, there's grass hay too, which actually makes hay the 3rd largest crop in the U.S. after corn and soybeans and just ahead of wheat. But yet we have no say in what's going on in policy. That's actually the problem. I'm not pro-government. Well, I'm certainly not pro-government. But I'm also not strictly anti-government because there's times where irrigation projects actually make farmers better off, right? I was talking to a farmer in the Yakima Valley in Washington, and if not for CCC projects in the 30s, building dams in the mountains above the valley, he would have no irrigation. So how do we come up with good policy instead of just sticking our heads in the sand and saying no?
You go through the pros and the cons, right? And it's like price, your price is going to be more stable.
And it has to do with risk management too.
No, it does. I mean, it's 100%. It's one of those things that,
I'm not sure that we need Arkins PLC, but it sure would be nice to have some sort of parity, some sort of equality in crop insurance. There are so many commodities beyond corn, wheat, and soybeans that have revenue policies. Hay doesn't. We're left to gamble on whether it rains or not.
100%. And the challenge is, like, even for us exporting, we can't hedge anything, right? So from our ocean freight to our cost of goods to, like, everything that we do is 100% every day. It can go completely sideways, right? Where, you even take an airline industry, right? They can pre-buy fuel, they can pre-sell tickets. They have a ton of risk, right? But they have multiple tools at their disposal to try to help them hedge that risk, right? Dairies and feedlots, buying and contracting. Like, we can go, and in the hay growers, there isn't. I mean,
livestock revenue protection, right? That's a livestock insurance policy that allows producers to protect their prices, right? And it's based off of a futures market. I'm also not advocating for a futures market in hay because it won't work.
Right.
I know the PhD types at universities that have looked at it and tried, and if CME thought that they could make money doing it, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange would be doing it already.
The one thing that I think as hay growers that we have to remember, because we get, we're in a, like we said, a tough market, right? If you can find the right customer, it is reoccurring revenue. It is probably the best reoccurring revenue because unless we need animals, right? The horse people, you know how that goes. They're not going to get rid of them.
I mean, horses are discretionary money, right? So if we get into a recession, that's actually something that can be cut out of a budget.
And it can. Yeah, it can.
I don't take that horse segment for granted.
We needed that for a good social media reel. We can traction for the
those darn horse people. No, they're wonderful.
Yeah,
customers.
Sorry, but the thing is overall, like, because I think I was listening to a it was not an agricultural podcast at all. Actually, it was something else. And they got into ag and they got into farming and I don't know how they got onto hay, but I think it was hay they got onto. But it was something in ag that was like reoccurring revenue. So it made me look at it different because I was like, wait, we do have, like, the majority of my customers. I don't have to try to sell to them. They continue to buy every month, right? And there's not a lot of business models out there that you get true reoccurring revenue like that, where you don't have to try to sell really hard. Once you get a good product, a good customer, they will continue to buy because they don't want to shop either, right? They don't want to change feed sources.
There's search costs. Search costs are real. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a good business if you can sustain and, control your costs. And, even for me, like in our area, John, it's kind of like when we do our local grass hay, it's 2 to 3 ton hay, non-irrigated. Price has been 130 to maybe 150 a ton. The last couple of years, you could maybe get $80 a ton out of it. Some you couldn't even give it away. And I'm looking at planting 200 acres of hay again that I never thought I would do. But it's like I look at the numbers and I'm like, well, grass seed isn't moving. The cost to produce it, get it in. It's a cash crop. I can plant it this fall. I'm going to have minimal costs into planting it. I mean, I can get $300 to $400 an acre, and I know I can sell it, right? I know I can sell it. I can cash out, and I can control my costs, right? I can farm it cheap. I had to pivot.
Krone tedders and rakes are specially designed for one goal, making the cleanest green hay without causing damage to your field or crop. It's all in the tine design, which gently lift and move your crop while flotation tires lessen compaction. Krone offers the largest selection of models and range of sizes in the world, so you get what works best for your operation. Find your local Krone dealer at krone-northamerica.com.
Do you think that not having risk management forces you to farm cheap?
Absolutely.
That's our social media post right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it forces a broke mindset in the hay industry. It's a problem.
Look, you've seen it. Look at how would what is it? Have you seen the universal car insurance idea? It's like nobody would take care of their car. Like it's the same. And that's we just you naturally get relaxed, right? You just don't try as hard, right? If you never had to pay anything back for any of the equipment you bought, well, I mean, you just run it, right? If they're like, hey, we're gonna give you a new baler every year and you don't got to pay for it, you're like, great. Like it's the same idea. It's just you're not going to try that hard. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clear in the group that everybody said no, but there definitely is a lot more to that conversation. Looking deeper.
I mean, there just has to be more.
Yeah,
we need to be at the table saying no. And we should, like, if we're going to say no for ourselves, we should be saying no for everybody else too. Now, is that actually the right policy discussion? I don't know. I'm certainly not the one to decide what's good or bad. I'm saying sticking our head in the sand and right. Saying no is the wrong answer. It has to be a more sophisticated conversation around the nuance of crop insurance, direct payments, disaster payments. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that 3 or 4 years of drought, well, actually 5 years of drought for us. We've had drought every single summer for 5 years. It's hard on a lot of us.
Yeah.
And there's just so little that we can do.
Yeah. Can't, make rain dance or what we can do.
I mean, I've seen some of the most like devout Christian, really, really strong Christian guys out there with a headdress and a stick doing a rain dance. I mean, it was
trying, man. They're trying.
They're trying. They're deviating quite a ways from their core beliefs, and yeah, it didn't help. All of that to say, like, it makes us tougher too. There is a lot of good to hardship too.
I can remember in 2000 and there's 2 periods of time. I think it was in like '08. I used to do annual payments, and I had a bunch of annual payments to do about this time of the year. And the hay market was so screwed up that I couldn't give anything away. And I remember I had to call Agco in New Holland because how many times have we all bought equipment middle of summer? And so you sign that paperwork, you do an annual payment,
and you realize that you have to make payments the next year at the time when you have the least cash flow.
Yeah, you have the least. So I did that, and so then we got into a bad year. I was like really busy the year before, so I bought all this equipment. It was like 2006, I think, is when I bought it, 6 and 7, and then 2008 comes. It was a complete show. And I remember having to, I can't sell anything. I cannot make these payments. So I had to call New Holland, called Agco and said, hey, I don't have any money to make these payments. They're like, okay, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I don't know. What's my options? Well, can you pay anything? So I basically scrounged up enough money and we paid half the payment then, and then they bumped it out like 6 or 7 months for me to, pay the other half. Now, luckily I made it work. So any of you guys that are struggling, communicate with your lenders.
Yeah, two things there. Know your numbers. Know if you're going to have a cash flow shortfall, and then communicate with your lenders, because your lenders, they want to hear from you more than they want your money.
They still want you to pay. They still want you to pay, but they're not going to let you off the hook, right? But communicate. So, and then we had, I'm trying to think, it was right about that same time. I think we were hauling straw. We were hauling 3-tie ryegrass straw, and we were winter delivering it, I remember, for $35 a ton. And this is before I had a hay press. I mean, so you're just
so upside down.
Yeah.
And especially on that winter delivery.
Yeah, you got storage, you got double trucking, right? And then we had in 2000, oh gosh, it's like I could go through it starts with all the bad memories, but there's been multiple times where we have sold product at a $50 a ton loss, right? And it's just like, so, the issue is that it got so good in 22, and it's been so, depend on what, like I said, depend on what your market is. But for most people, between weather issues, lack of water, lack of rainfall, low prices, 23, 24.
I'm going to lean back. I'm going to lean back into exchange rates here for a minute, because it doesn't just affect the hay industry. That took the shine out of corn and soybeans and wheat and that took all of the froth out of the market in 22. That took the cream off the top in 23, and 24 and 25 were just shrinking the gallon of milk in the jar at this point.
So the $1 million question, John, what's going to happen?
Okay, so a couple of things. Bank of Japan is kind of talking about increasing interest rates. That doesn't necessarily fix your Korea market, but it doesn't hurt, right?
No.
Our Federal Reserve is talking about lower interest rates, especially now we didn't get our jobs data that we actually needed. This is kind of crazy talking about jobs data in the hay market. But all of these things are interrelated, and here's how. Weak jobs data would allow the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. Lower interest rates reduces foreign direct investment into the U.S. That reduces the demand for the dollar. That reduces the price of the dollar. The only thing a strong dollar does is allows us to buy cheap junk from China for cheaper. And it disadvantages domestic production. So anybody that tells me that they want a strong dollar is saying that they want to buy cheap junk from China and not make anything in the U.S. This is completely backwards, and that's what has to change. And it's all based on interest rate and interest rate differentials between countries. Until that changes, ag is in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
And these discussions about tariffs and trade war with China, I'm not discounting the troubles that soybean farmers are having. But I'm saying that we've been building up to these problems, and the tariffs just tip folks over the edge. Yeah. So to just talk about soybeans to China as the big discussion in agriculture is actually missing the bulk of the problem, which is this structural issue around exchange rate that nobody is addressing. Mm-hmm. And the problem is we can't directly address it. It takes so long to make for those changes to come about. It's going to be rough for a while.
Well, and it's interesting because like even in the export side, I remember, John, 22 was good because of COVID, okay, realistically. Like it was supply chain, guys. It was supply and demand. The product wasn't getting there. Prices, people start paying more for it when they can't get it, right? Well, if you look at like true stats, like things were slowing down kind of intermittently before that. There was issues on the horizon with a lot of these products, a lot of these commodities before all this piled up. It didn't happen overnight, like John's saying. So, and then what happened is COVID kind of saved a lot of businesses. And now, even outside of ag, right, it's all back unfolding again. What I tell everybody in the coaching group, because, trying to keep couple hundred people motivated in these times is not easy, is the one thing that's going to happen is there'll be opportunity, right? What'll happen is when times get tough, people quit, they get out, they retire, they consolidate, and that if you're still in it or you're young and you're wanting to start out, just kind of stick it out, and there's going to be some opportunity that comes out of it at the end.
There's always opportunity in the marketplace, and the way that you figure those things out is by meeting people, talking to people, marketing, and watching your numbers so you can know where you're making and losing money, what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
Most folks in agriculture just think about what they're producing and then go to work, and they forget to measure the outcomes, and the outcomes have to be measured financially because the dream only lasts till the money runs out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, one last little thing that I'll be covering there at HayCon is HayX, of course.
Oh, actually having an inventory of your products? It's the craziest concept.
Yeah.
It's almost like corn, wheat, and soybean farmers have had that for 50 years.
It's been challenging for us to manage always. We're pretty deep in the program. Thing was not going to be, well, originally it was built for me specifically, and then did not plan on opening it up to anybody until we did Baylor School, John. And we, talked to, some people asked me about it at the school when you were there. And so, I kind of, at that point, we couldn't even let other people in. It was coded specifically for, one user. And so after Baylor School, when I got the feedback from everybody that was there, which guys we're going to do another Baylor School we plan on in March, and we're trying to put something together back in the Midwest or, back in there, which we'll keep you updated on if we can pull that off. But basically we went back and recoded it so we could let, sub accounts in, or basically give accounts to other people. And so we've got about 20 beta users in there right now, and we've got about 25, people signed up, subscribed. We're deep into coding. We are continuing. It's a build as you go skateboard model, like Ron likes to call it, my programmer. We're modifying, every week we're changing, how we do things and how the reporting looks, and improving and getting feedback from people. So yeah, at this point, John, you can basically go in there. We pin drop our fields. So like even if I go buy hay, so right now I'm using it for where I'm buying hay, right? So like my drivers today, they have pin drops. It's all locked into your own map. Everything's in there. You can do purchase contracts. They're all digital, so you don't have to print anything. You can do it mobile. You can log in from your computer. I'm logged in right now. I can see, my driver's weight tickets live. So when they load, they generate their weight ticket in the app. And then when they get to a scale, whether it's my scale or an offsite scale, let's say they go and weigh at a feed store or like down in Bonanza and stuff, down there, or even local, maybe to your area, there's a feed store that has a scale, right? So instead of trying to track down that paper ticket, they can still do their paper ticket, right? You actually put the paper ticket number in the HayX ticket so you can keep track of it if you want to that way, which is a great way. But when they're on that scale, they put the weight in. So when they're on the scale, they open the app, right? And they put the weight in. Well, now you or your office or who you can let your whole, like we have 50 people logged into ours, right? Into mine. And you can set permissions to who you want to see, who you don't want to see, certain parameters. And so now if that guy loses the ticket, it's at least in HayX. Then you can go in, you don't have to take all those weight tickets and put them in Excel. You just pull a report. It's all in there. We're going to be showing you guys more about that. I'm going to be doing a demonstration. My programmer will be there as well. So that's kind of the other little piece that, there's been a lot of questions about it, how it works. So we'll be doing demos there. And
here's where I'm going to push a little bit. We have to have integration from the balers to the software. And this is me talking to not just you, Jesse, but to equipment manufacturers. This has to be thoughtless. It has to happen automatically, because my baler operators, I'm just ecstatic when the 80-year-old guy shows up at 5 o'clock in the morning to bale alfalfa. My expectation for him to put data into anything is zero. The teenager that I really don't like hiring teenagers. Their attention to detail is zero. So we have to have automation. on little balers on just the same as big balers. And these data systems have to feed in. We have to have better inventory management in our industry, period, end of story.
Yeah. So the one thing that I'll give you an example how we do it is like I'll give you a quick example of I was in Vegas. I custom hired someone to come bale, right? He charges by the bale. So he texts me the bale count. Okay. So I open up the app, I go in there and I just put in 30 seconds, right? I open it up, I put in the bale count. Then basically at that point now, and then I put it into storage. I put it into what barn we put it in. Okay, it's done. It shows that's there. So if you have people that are someone that you don't want in there, what this allows you to do is if you don't want them to put in the data in, like your baler operator, it allows you to put it in there at least. You can have them text you, your number or whatever, if you don't want to give them a login, right? And then it removes the need for you to have a notebook.
Let's ideate and imagine a world where the baler automatically sends that data to the app. I'm pushing.
The issue with that is
pushing.
There's a difference between it doesn't know if it broke on the ground. That's the issue.
Okay. That's fair.
That is the issue.
Then have the bale wagon send it.
We have the stacker drivers put it in. We do everything by stacked count. So
although you don't always know if a bale broke in the stack either.
Yeah.
But at least it made it into the stack.
Yep. So what we do is how we use it, how it's built and how we use it for straws, we use it by the stack. So we don't look at the bale count monitors. It's when we stack a field, we count the stack, we put that in, and then the drivers, instead of doing a paper ticket, they do a digital ticket and pulls against the stack. And so if it doesn't, there's a report in there that tells you if it matches or it doesn't match. And if it doesn't match, either the guy didn't count or the weight tickets are screwed up. So we go a little bit further. You can take a picture. So like I screwed up. I bought some straw and I took a picture of the stack and I counted the bales and I put it in there. And then I was there when we moved the straw, like I ran squeeze. And then I did the report and it didn't match. And I'm like, I knew how many loads that we hauled. And so I went back and I looked at the picture that I took that I'd uploaded. And then I had my wife count and I said, I counted that stack wrong when I put it in. But I had everything in one spot, right? So even I that have counted hundreds and thousands of stacks, I counted wrong.
Yeah, that's actually the problem, right? Is even folks that know what they're doing make mistakes on bale counts all the time.
Yep.
Super easy.
I've actually found where we've had the best successes in the weight ticket side, where it's super accurate because actually the drivers, believe it or not, the drivers do the most accurate paperwork. It blows me away. And so basically it's just allowed us to just streamline that whole process. So yeah. So, but even like, I'll give you an example. Like, so those bales were baled over at my house. I wasn't there. He sends me the bale count. I put them in storage. And then when we start loading dry vans, because we're going to load dry vans, every time one goes out, we'll just do a digital ticket. There's no scale. So that is not going to be weighed, right? So they're not going to be going across a scale. So basically that we'll do a digital ticket and it'll pull against that stack. And then we do monthly inventory. So then the system will tell us, HayX will say, hey, this is what should be in the barn because you had 3,000 to start with. You've been pulling 500, at a whack out or whatever, the dry van holds. And then, when you go in there to count, it should match, right? Well, if it doesn't match, either someone stole hay or there wasn't the original amount wasn't there, or the weight ticket didn't get done. And this just allows you to see where, what's going on, where the error is. And it's super important because otherwise you're not collecting revenue or you're paying, if you're buying hay or like for that case, if he sent me a bale count and it doesn't match, I'm going to overpay for baling, right? So it's a management tool just to help you generate more profit in your business.
This is actually something that I wanted to talk about. It's the small things that matter the most. As we think about, and I always use like the stock market as context, right? Over the long run, like 25, 30 year kind of history, if you just had an index fund in the stock market, you made 7-ish%, right? How many times a day do we make 7% screw ups? And it is so frequent. And I want to give you some credit for this. I went to your baler school. I have an old 4790 Heston. I tightened up or rather I loosened, hold on, I got to think about this. I loosened the spring tension on the door on the bottom of the pre-chamber to increase my flake count. We added 100 pounds per bale.
Hey, look at that.
Like that. And it was one stupid 9/16 nut that took 10 seconds to back it off. We added 100 pounds per bale. That was 8% more hay that I got under a roof instead of having to tarp. I just matched long-term stock market returns.
Yeah. It's
with one little change.
Yeah. It's typically it's never we were talking about that today with inventory. We do this, we do weekly and monthly inventory, and you always find discrepancies, and everybody's like, well, where is it at? I'm like, it's never one main item. It's comprised of a bunch of little areas, right? It's off a little here, it's off a little there. It's, and the next thing you know, it's a big adjustment.
That was a lot to take in. We talked about HayCon, haycon.org. That's December 11th and 12th.
Yep, December 11th and 12th in Vegas. Yep.
Okay. And of course, if you just Google HayCon, it comes right up. That's about connection. That's about figuring out how to pivot and getting ideas from other folks. That exchange of knowledge is really important, especially in a stressed time. It feels difficult to do something that feels maybe a little extravagant going to Vegas, but that networking is really what's the valuable component. We talked about some struggles in the export market. We talked about your up and coming hay inventory tracking system, HayX. What else did we touch on there? I'm just going to say, load me up with the comments. I want to hear them.
Yeah.
Because the more comments that I get, the better that I can articulate the position of the industry when I have those opportunities.
Yep. Nope, 100%.
But please say more than no.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's just a bunch of no's. I left it an open-ended question. But it was just no.
Give me something more than no, because we have to talk about like subsidies, like direct payments. We have to talk about crop insurance. We have to talk about disaster assistance, because those are all different things.
A lot more to it.
Yep. Jesse, it's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
You can always check out more of Jesse's stuff on all the social medias, I assume. Just check out Jesse Bounds and Bounds Hay, the Jesse Bounds Hay group.
I'll give a shout out to Bulk Loads quick, because there was Bulk Loads came out, did some YouTube videos, and they released 2 videos on their YouTube under Bulk Loads, and they're doing an event in January. So if you guys
that's a trucking deal. Right?
Yeah. Yep. They're out in Missouri. In Missouri is where the event is. It was a great event. I went last year. Anyways, they're going to be at HayCon as well. They're bringing their whole team. So like, guys, this thing gets small real quick. And then a bunch of people that are in my network were like, these are even hay guys are like, oh, that bulk freight conference is cool. I'm going to go to that. So it all connects at some point, so it's
good deal.
Pretty cool. So yeah, check them out.
Thank you to Crone. Thank you to Jesse for his time today. Thanks to Nick at Palmieri Sound for doing all of our audio editing. And thank you to Jessica Palmieri for doing our social media coordination.